On the back side of your notes, we are going to now solve for a new equation right here. 3y minus 8x equals 48, and I want the x and the y intercepts again. So if I plug in y equals 0, I'll have the x one. If I plug in x equals 0, I'll have the y one. So for my x-intercept and my y-intercept, I have a little room here for you to do all your work. We're going to plug in that y is 0, so I've got 3 times y, which is 0, minus 8x is equal to 48. So I went back into this equation, I plugged in that the y was 0, and again, I'm just solving for that x-intercept right here. So 3 times 0 is 0, but 0 minus 8x is not 8x, that is negative 8x. So this was really a negative 8x the entire time. The subtraction goes to the next number. So negative 8x is equal to 48. Now I can divide by that negative 8, and x is equal to negative 6. So my x-intercept is negative 6. Now let's switch over to my y-intercept this time. So I've got y-intercept means x is 0. I want this y still there. I want to get rid of this x. I'm going to make it a 0. So I have 3y minus 0, so 8 times 0 is 0, equals 48. And then 3y minus 0 is still just 3y. We didn't really subtract anything in that case. Now I can divide by my 3, and I get that y is equal to 16. So my y-intercept is 16. So this next one is a little more difficult and a little easier. First, notice it's in slope-intercept form. So y is equal to mx plus b. So that means it actually gave us our y-intercept right at the end there. So I already know my y-intercept is negative 4. It says negative 4 right there. But I'm also going to show you how to solve it with the equation, just in case this pops up and you forget about that. So my y needs to be a 0 for my x-intercept, so I'm going to solve for that first. So I really have 0 equals 2x minus 4. Now the rest of the time we just kind of ignored the 0 and just, got rid of it and kept moving. This time I can't get rid of the 0 because it's one side of my equation. So I've got to leave it sitting there. I've got to just leave it for a bit. Now I've got a two-step equation, and I've got to solve for the 2x right here. So I need to add this 4 to the other side. It's gone. I've got 0 plus 4, which is 4, and that is equal to 2x. So the last step, divide by that 2, and you find that x is also equal to 2. So this canceled. 4 divided by 2 is still 2. So my x-intercept is 2. Now let's go over here and solve for your y-intercept how you normally do it. But if you're smart enough, you'll see it from the beginning and you won't have to do this. Oops, y-intercept. And this time we want to plug in that our x is 0. So take a look at it. So 2 times x minus 4 gives us y equals 0 minus 4, which gives us negative 4. So that really quickly solved for that negative 4 we saw up there as well. So I want you to pause the video. You've got 4 to try on your own. Come back and check your answers here and watch any explanations that you need. So again, pause. I'm going to move on though. So if I want my x and y intercepts, I'm going to make my little table here to help me out. I know if I want the x-intercept, I want y0. If I want the y-intercept, I want x0. So I'm going to just do my work right here in a row. So I'm going to first say 4x minus 0 equals 16. Minus 0 doesn't change anything. And then all I need to do is say divide by 4. So x is equal to 4. So I know my x-intercept is 4. Now make a little dividing line for your work. Keep it nice and organized. And let's reset the problem to its original. So this time I want my y-intercept, so I want my x to be 0. So 4 times 0 minus y is equal to 16. Now a big thing that I see a lot of people doing is they lose this negative right here. Don't forget that this is really 0 minus 1y equals 16. So when we drop out the 0, we've still got that negative 1 sitting there that we need to divide by. So now when I divide by my negative 1, I get that y is equal to negative 16. So my y-intercept is negative 16. For the next one, over here, I'm going to do very similar. I've got my x and my y. And I am going to plug in y is 0 first, and then I'm going to plug in x is 0 next. So I've got 2x plus 3 times 0 equals 8. I've got 2x then, because all of this is going to cancel out, equals 8. So when I divide by 2, I find that x equals 4. Now let's make a little dividing line. Let's reset it. So back to the original. This time I want x to be 0 so I can solve for the y-intercept. So I have 2 times 0, which is 0. 0 plus 3y is 3y, and that is equal to this 8. But when you divide by 3, it doesn't go in evenly, so I would just leave that as its fraction form. Reduce it if you could, but that's already in simplest form. So that would be one that we probably, this is the easiest way to find the y-intercept, because you're not going to see that one on the graph, 8/3. This can be very difficult. Alright, if you're smart enough, on number 3, you already have your y-intercept. Notice that slope-intercept form. So I already know from my t-chart, 0, 0, I know that the y-intercept is positive 7. But let's go solve for the x-intercept real quick. So 0 is equal to 2x plus 7. So in case you forgot why we plugged in a 0 there, if I want the x-intercept, y is 0, I can't just get rid of that because it's the side of my equation. Instead, I need to subtract away, get negative 7 equals 2x, divide by 2, and here's another example where this one would have been hard to see on a graph because it's a fraction. So just leave this in its fraction form, reduce it if possible. So your x-intercept was negative 7 over 2, your y-intercept was 7. Alright, now this one's not in any form that we've seen so far, so let's just remember our rules about what x and y-intercepts mean. So if my y is 0, then I have my x-intercept. If my x is 0, then I have my y-intercept. So I'm going to start out with 3x equals 0 minus y. I know I'm solving for my x-intercept right now. Let's do this quick math. 0 minus 1 is negative 1. And then I need to get rid of this times 3, so I'm going to divide by 3. So this one has a fraction again. It's not going through a whole number, it's going through a decimal. So we're going to say our x-intercept is negative 1/3. Alright, for the y-intercept, reset, go back to our original. Now I want x to be 0. So 3 times 0 equals y minus 1. 3 times 0 is 0, but don't drop off the side of the equation. You still got to do some work here. So I need to get this y by itself. That means I need to add the 1 to the other side. So I've got y is equal to positive 1. So my y-intercept is 1. So I was just going to graph this graph right here just real quick for you. Make this make a little more sense to you. I know what this line looks like already. I know the y-intercept right here is at 1. And I know that my x-intercept is at negative 1/3. So that's like barely over here. So I know this is a really steep line, and I could draw the picture based off that graph. If you need to go back and see anything again, feel free to, or ask me a question in class.